Good morning. It is Wednesday, January the 2nd, and this is The Drill. And thank you very much. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States of America today, because I'm the only one that makes the presumption for the status quo, speaking to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers. And along the lines of what can we do, it occurred to me that one of the things that can be done by the individual and has to be done by the individual if we're going to have the kind of civilization that we all want and have and defeat socialism is that we have to act as individuals. We have to take action rather than looking to and or waiting for politicians to take that kind of action for us. For instance, as far as illegal immigration is concerned, because there's a big deal about illegal immigrants and what's going on at the border. Apparently, there were some 100 or so immigrants that were trying to scale a fence, and the Border Patrol ended up having to use tear gas, repel them with tear gas. They're throwing bottles and rocks and whatnot at the Border Patrol agents because they were trying to stop this. And women were putting their children, trying to get their children over razor wire. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced razor wire, but it's what the name implies. It's wire with like little razor blades all around the edges. Very sharp, will cut you in a split second. So here they are trying to put their children, martyr their children, basically, is what they're looking to do. Either they're going to succeed and get over the wire, or they will end up cutting their kids, and then they will have something to show the cameras, the news people, the alleged news people. So one of the things that we can do in particular is, because this is never going to end, the push to try to get in here and to get in here illegally until each individual in the United States of America walks the talk. If we're going to say that we don't want illegal immigration, we want people to respect our laws, we have to respect them ourselves. And until we're ready, number one, to quit hiring people that here illegally. There's so many of us that will say, I hate illegal immigration, and then turn around and hire people to mow our lawns, wash our toilets, and babysit our children. And this is something we wouldn't do in any other case of criminality. If you see somebody across the street from you that is burglarizing your neighbor's house, you wouldn't step out onto your porch and yell at them, hey, why don't you come over here and mow my lawn when you've got a minute, right? You're not going to do that. But that's what we do with illegal aliens. They come over, they're here illegally, and we say, well, while you're here, we'll give you a job. You can mow my lawn, wash my toilets, keep an eye on my kids. Why we would trust people that are willing to break the law to watch our children or do anything is beyond me. But the point is as long as you and I keep hiring these folks, they're going to have a reason to come. They recognize, the whole world recognizes the duplicity, so to speak, of Americans. On the one hand, demanding that that our laws be respected, and then on the other hand, again, turning a blind eye when they are not respected. The other thing that we can do, besides not hiring them, is drop a dime. Call the ICE agents, call the ICE department, and let them know when you run across or encounter people that are here illegally. Drop a dime. The county jails, at least in California, are not going to do that. They have decided they're sanctuary, that they're very sanctimonious and righteous, and they're way too good to go ahead and follow federal law and assist federal law enforcement. But that doesn't mean that the individuals, the voters, the taxpayers have to go along with that idea. Drop a dime. And once enough people in the United States of America start acting like they're not going to put up with it, treating these folks as the criminals that they are. They're fugitives. They come into this country illegally, and they're fugitives after that. They're hoping they stay here long enough they're going to get amnesty. And that's one of the things that we need to make clear. There's not going to be any amnesty. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And if you come here and we find out that you got here illegally, somebody is going to drop a dime, call ICE, and have you deported. So that when the world understands that we are going to walk the talk, that we are going to not only say and insist, say that we want people to respect our laws, we're going to insist that they respect our laws. When we respect the very laws we're asking others to respect, then this problem will solve itself. So the other thing, I was listening to Glenn Beck this morning, and he was citing an op-ed by Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney was, because now Mitt Romney is a senator from Utah, and he's basically did an op-ed about his relationship with the President of the United States. And he lost to the President of the United States, and he resents it. He still resents it. And you can read that and get that sense in his op-ed, that he's frustrated, he's still disappointed in the way things turned out electorally, and he tries to make the issue Trump, basically, that he's going to do the best he can to get along with Trump, but basically it's on Trump to prove himself to Mitt Romney. But if you read or listen to Glenn Beck, you'll be able to listen to his podcast. You'll be able to hear Glenn Beck reads the op-ed in its entirety. And again, it's just basically whining and complaining, and a person that offers absolutely no answers. He doesn't offer any constructive criticism. As a conservative, a true conservative, I have nothing to fear from constructive criticism. If I'm going to be criticized and it's valid, I want that, because then I can do a better job. My goal is to be happy, and so I want to do whatever's going to be effective in getting me to be in making me happy. So if I'm going the wrong direction, it's like if you're in a car and I'm going the wrong direction, I want somebody to say, "Excuse me, Ron, you're going the wrong way." Now, they don't have to use ridicule or sarcasm or insult me along the way. You know, what kind of an idiot are you? Only idiots go the wrong way. That's not helpful. But saying, "Excuse me, Ron, you're going the wrong way. You need to turn around, do a 180 and go back the other direction," that's helpful. Because I want to get to my destination. I want to be happy. And the same thing should be said with Donald Trump. He should welcome constructive criticism. But if you're just going to whine or complain and offer nothing but, again, ridicule, then nobody should bother to pay attention to you. So today I'm going to be reading from Ayn Rand's Lexicon, and then from the 10 books that screwed up the world, 5 that didn't help, and then from the 10 books that every conservative must read when I come back. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome back. Today's concept is dogma. A dogma is a set of beliefs accepted on faith, that is, without rational justification or against rational evidence. A dogma is a matter of blind faith. And then from the Playboy interview, Playboy, if widely accepted, couldn't objectivism harden into a dogma? Rand, no, I have found that objectivism is its own protection against people who might attempt to use it as a dogma. Since objectivism requires the use of one's mind, those who attempt to take broad principles and apply them unthinkingly and indiscriminately to the concretes of their own existence find that it cannot be done. They are then compelled either to reject objectivism or apply it. When I say apply, I mean that they have to use their own mind, their own thinking, in order to know how to apply objectivist principles to the specific problems of their own life. Of course, in this particular this segment, she's wrong. She's absolutely wrong. Objectivism, what she should have gone ahead and did was when she became a philosopher, so to speak. And really, nobody becomes a philosopher. Everybody is a philosopher. You're born a philosopher, you die a philosopher. We all have to use philosophy in order to be able to make sense of the world around us and in order to ultimately be happy. So Rand should have just declared herself as a philosopher, and that what she's searching for is wisdom and the truth. And then she would have said something a little bit different. She would have said, since the truth requires the use of one's mind, those who attempt to take broad principles and apply them unthinkingly and indiscriminately to the concretes of their own existence find that it cannot be done. They are then compelled to either reject the truth or to apply it. So that makes sense. That's perfect. But when you have objectivism, it's like I said, the biggest mistake Ayn Rand made was in creating objectivism. As soon as she created objectivism, she became subjective. She failed. She ceased to be objective. She created not a philosophy, but dogma. The very thing that she is saying that objectivism isn't. It is. And one of the ways you can tell is to look at the people that are heirs to her ideas, so to speak. They're Dr. Pykoff, for instance. He was one of her first students or acolytes, and he ended up getting a PhD in philosophy because of her, and he's written many books. Ominous Parallels is one of them. But with him and others that are in the objectivist so-called movement, you can tell it's a dogma. Reading their op-eds, and if you go on the websites and look at their opinions on various issues of the day, you can tell that they're very dogmatic. In a lot of ways, they're as reactionary as Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity. So when I come back, I'm going to be reading from the 10 books that screwed up the world and 5 that didn't help. And thank you very much. So when we left it, the author was having an imaginary conversation, debate, dialectic, whatever, with Karl Marx. So I'm going to skip the rest of it and just get to the point here. So flows the torrent from Marx's pen, battering opponents with abstractions rather than replying in detail to objections. If you disagree with him, then you're worse than an idiot. Your very disagreement proves his thesis, because all ideas are merely the reflections of social class. Then the only reason you could have for disagreeing with Marx is that your head is filled with the ideas of the old bourgeois society, the capitalist class that is oppressing the working class. You are then an obstacle to be eliminated by the proletarian revolution rather than a legitimate objection to be answered by reason. If you've never encountered a Marxist or read Marx himself, all of this heaping flow of abstractions probably makes little sense. So for the benefit of clarity, let's pick his argument apart and look at its assumptions. And before we get into this, I want to say, basically, his previous paragraph did exactly that. It wiped out his entire argument in one fell swoop. He really doesn't need to, overanalyze it, but he's going to. We begin with the most important assumption, which we've already noted. Marx was an atheist and a materialist. The two go together. The denial of spiritual entities means the affirmation of all reality is purely material. What then is a human being? He is an animal that, like every other animal, must provide for his own material well-being. As human beings are furless animals with paltry claws and less than menacing teeth, they need to go much further than other animals in having to labor to produce things for their own sustenance and protection. The more complex the society and more diverse the things it produces, the more complex is the division of labor that produces them. Recalling Rousseau, labor involves the removal of what is common to what is private, and hence arises private property. Furthermore, the production of food, clothing, shelter, and methods of protection takes different forms or modes. say, in an agricultural society based on a hillside versus a fishing-based community by a seaside. Therefore, different societies have different modes of production that are manifested in the structure of their respective division of labor. We can even see how this division would manifest itself in distinct social classes: the rulers, the warriors, the landed gentry, the shopkeepers, the farmers, the artisans, and so on. Some would own more property or have more money than others, and some might indeed have little or no property or money. And we can even see that a certain amount of antagonism between the classes might arise more in some societies, less in others. Nothing particularly controversial or Marxist about what I've just said. In fact, Plato and Aristotle have had quite profound and decidedly non-Marxist philosophical arguments based on the divisions of labor in society. What keeps Marx from similar profundity is his devotion to materialistic simplicity and revolutionary utopianism. And that's what I've been saying along the whole time, is that basically the left in this country is after the thing they've always been after, and that is revolution and socialist paradise. In regard to materialistic simplicity, Marx made the fundamental error of confusing an important aspect of something with its entirety. Bulls have horns, but they're not merely life support systems for their formidable headgear. Likewise, human beings need food, clothing, and shelter, yet they're not merely food, clothing, shelter producers. They have souls that long for truth, beauty, and happiness. What he's getting at there is that Marx is defining human beings not by their essence, but by their accidents. Quality, quantity, those kinds of things. Those are all accidents. And the essence, you got to get to the essence of being a human being. And that's where we get into using your mind, having an intellect, reasoning, rationality, those kinds of things. Let me see. They have souls that long for truth, beauty, and happiness, a longing that transcends mere animal existence. Marx denies this, since for him, human beings are only material beings, then they are entirely defined by their material needs and desires, hence their various modes of production: food, clothing, shelter, and other material goods. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop this here, but it also lends itself to communication. How Marxists and left communicate is by denying concepts and merely dealing with words as arbitrary sensible signs with meanings imposed on them by convention. So they manipulate words, manipulate them in terms of using them either denotatively or connotatively, and they also try to redefine words just arbitrarily. Just out of the blue, they will try to come up with, for instance, or eliminate some words, and eliminate them by making sure that people don't use them. The one word that's on its way out now is apparently immigration. It's being replaced by the word migration, which is wrong, because animals migrate, human beings emigrate and immigrate. The difference is property. So when I come back, I'm going to be reading from the 10 books that every conservative must read. And thank you very much. And from the 10 books that every conservative must read, Aristotle. And so we're now at the part of the chapter called The Oligarch and the Democrat. When we left this, he was making an interesting point that Aristotle realized that discovered that there was good government and bad government. And what was most fascinating was he did not consider democracy to be good government. He considered polity to be good government. That if the people rule, and it depends on how rulers rule, whether it's the people or a king, if they rule in their own selfish interests, they're bad. If they rule in the interests of society at large, then they're doing good. And so he made the difference between polity and democracy, that polity was the people acting in the best interests of the entire society, and that democracy was the people acting in their own selfish interests. According to Aristotle, neither oligarchy nor democracy is entirely unjust. Indeed, each has hold of a kind of half-truth about justice. both fasten onto, quote, a certain sort of justice, proceed only to a certain point, unquote. The oligarchs grab onto one aspect of justice, inequality. Those who work harder should receive a greater reward. Those who run faster should receive the prize. The Democrats seize upon another aspect of political justice, equality. Since all are equally citizens, they believe that all should be treated equally in every way. But two half-truths about justice do not make a whole truth. Aristotle tells us that almost all men are bad judges concerning their own things. Our biases warp our understanding. Oligarchs think that because they have far more money, they are superior in all things, and justice should focus entirely on inequality. Democrats think that because they are equally free citizens with the oligarchs, they should be equal in all things. They therefore focus on freedom and equality as if they were moral absolutes. At the heart of this disagreement is money, or more accurately, wealth. It is the division between the few rich and the many poor, and it represents a kind of permanent historical tension. Aristotle points out the way to blunt this tension is through the creation of something in between rich and poor. So he remarks, in all cities there are three parts of the city, the very well-off, the very poor, and the third, those in the middle between these. This middling element, the middle class, is the key. A society with a dominant middle class is where, quote, a lasting polity is capable of existing, unquote. The stability provided by a dominant middle class is not just a matter of money, but even more a matter of character. The middle class works hard. Like the rich, the middle class believes hard work should be rewarded, since middle class people own property. They stand ready to defend property rights and block burdensome taxation against the efforts of the propertyless poor who want property and wealth redistributed equally. But like the poor, the middle class believe in political equality. The middle class does not believe that the rich are inherently more virtuous or better qualified to hold political power than anyone else. In his attention to the character of the middle class, Aristotle argues that farmers make the strongest foundation for a solid middle class, and the best foundation for a polity or republic because they are hardworking, independent, and self-reliant. And we are not surprised that, according to Aristotle, the best legislators are from the middling citizens. Their character makes them govern most wisely and moderately, at least more so than the very rich or the very poor. The American Republic, obviously, has followed Aristotle's advice, and even today our two major political parties reflect aspects of his argument, especially on how they characterize each other. Democrats cast the Republicans as the oligarchs, the party of the rich who rule only for the benefit of the rich, and Republicans cast Democrats as the party of the grasping poor, whose policies entail high taxes and socialism, i.e. enforced equality in all respects. And interestingly enough, both parties profess themselves to be the party of the middle class. The middle class itself, however, seems to have growing doubts about whether either party is interested in ruling virtuously and for the common good. So he fails. The thing is, he fails to make a distinction between an adequate distinction between Democrats and socialists. Yes, Democrats do want to look at things in terms of equality, and that we should have as much equality, even of outcome, not just of opportunity, as we possibly can. Socialists and socialism is basically a prediction. Socialism says none of that matters. We don't care what you want. The only thing that matters is the dialectic, the historical dialectic, that capitalism is going to be wiped from the face of the earth, and we're going to be left with a socialist paradise. We won't need to struggle to get everybody to be equal, because in socialist paradise, everybody will be equal naturally. So, this time, that brings us to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. And until next time, thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.